Laz, how many times did you have to shower during Herogasm?
Well, I don't know how many times you showered, Erin, but
every day, obviously. I mean, I was around a lot of naked bodies when I got home, but I wasn't the one covered from head to toe in ejaculation. Let me put it that way.
What you guys see is about 20% of what we actually shot. That's what was able to clear through Amazon Legal. What you didn't see is what Erin and I will never be able to unsee in life.
Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversations at Home program. I'm Damian Holbrook from TV Guide magazine. And if you're interested in programming like this from the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our group today because I love this show so much. We're talking about The Boys. Today we are talking with Laz Alonso, Chace Crawford, Erin Moriarty, Claudia Doumit, and Jessie T. Usher from The Boys. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How everyone doing? Thank you so much for doing this. Again, such a great season. Season 3 was ridiculous. A show that begins its season basically inside a penis.
We're in the golden age of television.
Where do you go from there? And where the season went was so unexpected and so surprising. And I know, we're talking about The Boys, but first I want to talk about the women. Because I feel like 10 years ago even, this would have been a very different experience for actresses on a show like this. We're seeing so many differences. And this is a show where we're seeing these women, these female characters really claim their space and drive the story. How is it for you guys knowing and being free to play women who don't have to be noble?
All I'll say is, I think, as you said, I just feel very grateful to be working during this period of time as opposed to 10 years ago. I think that there were incredible shows being made 10 years ago with nuanced female characters. But I feel like each decade they become more and more nuanced. And I also think that the topical component of our show interlaced with each female character, like what my character goes through in season 1 and the way you're introduced to her. That's one of the things that drew me to the character, because I love the concept of being surprising people in terms of maybe you coming across as a soft person or soft-spoken or a do-gooder, and then having edge to you. And edge doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It can just mean outspokenness. But I love the concept that good people do bad things and vice versa. And I think Annie exemplifies that and continues to. And I think that I'm just grateful that, Eric called me as soon as I got the role, and it was just about nuance. And characters can be, like human beings, our characters can contradict themselves on a day-to-day basis. And so playing a character who is the moral compass of the show, who can also fuck up, frankly, is as important to me as anything. I would rather play that than someone who is just universally good.
And Claudia?
Yeah, just to expand on Erin talking about the nuance of the character. I think at the core of the show, each character is just has human flaw, is just deeply flawed. And I think that the show highlights that, and it does it regardless of gender, of sex. Like, these characters are so deeply rich and so layered. And I think that that's really what they focus on in the show. And it shows. And honestly, I love playing a character that is so intensely flawed, so morally gray, struggling with power, and also not sexualized. As a woman, it's bliss to be able to look down at a script and not see that.
Right.
Yes. Or if you're sexualized as a woman, it's in an intentional way.
Intentional, ironic. Yeah. It's
objectified by a corporation.
Right.
Yeah. It's poking fun at the absurdity of that. as a woman. So I really think that just working on this show and the female characters that have been brought to life by like the writers, by Eric, by everyone is just such a gift, and should be a part of the norm.
The way these characters are, male or female, they're also flawed. And this season, I feel like season 3 really gave all of you so much to dig into, like more than previous seasons, especially like for you, Laz, like the story that you got to do with MM's like backstory and his trauma and the family. You must have been dying to dig into that story.
Yeah, this was, I told Eric when we wrapped at the end of the season, I said, this is the first season that I feel like I've got nothing left to say as a character.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
Nothing left. Energetic, physically, but also, really served a lot of what Erin mentioned, being a moral compass of the show in many ways. Her and I being teamed up together last season as well. It was like she's always been the moral compass on the side of the Soups. My character's been the moral compass on the side of the boys. And coming in, we were able to address a lot of things from racial injustice to sexualization, to hierarchy. There were so many things that Soulja Boy character represented and that we had to overcome. And it was really awesome for us to play together and explore those things in tandem. So it was a dynamic season to play Mother's Milk. This was something that I was talking to Eric about way during hiatus, during the George Floyd protests. He and I were texting each other during the protests and saying, brother, we got to somehow build this into the show. We in history like this happen and we not address it in a show that is committed to exposing societal, unfortunately, some things that have become norms, but it's societal discourse, so yeah, it was a great season for me and for Mother's Milk.
Yeah. And also, speaking of the topical nature of the season, Jessie, I never expected to see A-Train be pulled into a storyline that really dealt with the racial reckoning that America has gone through. And the heartbreaking part of it was, what it did to his family. But I feel in a way there's almost like this very nice escapist revenge fantasy of what you got to do to Nick's character, like what you just dragging him physically until he is a nub was kind of like, okay, I would like to do that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a moment of relief, from a very relevant and like high intensity, like the whole story was kind of just building tension on top of tension. And I like you, I never expected A-Train to be able to authentically be pulled into something like that. But the way that it panned out, the way that the writer's room kind of created that story and the way that they made it relevant to A-Train being the person who was always hidden behind corporate corruption, I just thought it was genius. You know what I mean? He is very much the person who would just side with the people who are cutting his check. But then it became bigger than money. It became bigger than power. It became bigger than position or, society and status. It became bigger than all of that. It was just personal. It was a relationship between he and his brother that determined the side of which he was on. And then it then woke him up. You know what I mean? And I personally never expected A-Train to be able to find that place. And I was just as impressed as, a lot of others were with how they incorporated that into this character. And it was beautiful to watch, and it was beautiful to drag Nick through the street. Not him personally, but Blue Hawk.
Blue Hawk. But there was a strange intimacy because A-Train is such a big character and such a big presence in the Soup world. His connection to the Black community and those scenes in the center where the apology was supposed to happen was so humanizing that we finally saw this guy connecting to something other than the image he's been given.
Right. Yeah, it was one of the first times that he's allowed himself to be vulnerable and be like a fish out of water. And that's why it kind of just felt so raw. He's always been polished. He's always been prepared. He's always hidden behind Vought. You know, he's has not taken that leap or that step outside of that umbrella in a very long time. So, you know, it even felt weird being in that place and not having Vought agents around kind of, you know, directing how that conversation was going to go. And it was just us, you know, it was just some actors in a room and kind of just finding moments that felt real.
Nice. And speaking of fish out of water, Chace, I mean, I could not take that one. I have, for 2 seasons up until this, harassing Eric Kripke about finding a place for the deep. And I was like, he's been separated, you know, he earned his separation, like he was a piece of shit in the first season, like, you know, his exile. But this season, it was like, I feel like it was what everyone has been waiting for. It was like this return of the deep to the seven, this elevation of him as an absolute comic horror show. Like, this is an absolute, like, and I love when a show takes like a hot guy and figures out how funny they are. But this was just perfect. The perfectly calibrated, like, he's a very dumb man and he's controlled by everyone, but I fucking love him.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, ever since I was a little boy, this is what I dreamed of. I knew the octopus. That was what I wanted to do. No, it really was great. And obviously Kripke and them, you know, they definitely put the deep through a bit of a ringer, but yeah, I did like the night before, I think we had to shoot one of those scenes. I called Kripke in a bit of a freak out and I was like, I can't do it, man. What are the camera angles? What's it going to be? But, it's a testament to the show that they're willing to go there and it's, you know, it's mixed in with all these other dark moments. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So
how was it for you finally getting to work again with everyone, like as the team, and be part of those scenes and be in the Vought Tower again? Honestly,
that was the best. I mean, it was nice. Season 2 was a great storyline. It was a lot of fun, but I was definitely on an island out there. You know, it was tough being alone. Right. But no, we were just filming another scene in the boardroom recently, and it was just like it was just nice to be, you know, with Ant and everyone, the superheroes. It was just nice to be able to play off that and have those little nuanced relationships with everybody. So it was very, very fun being back. Yeah.
And there was also some humanization of him. He's getting what he wants again. But it's always like that, careful what you wish for, because I felt like near the end of the season, he started to realize, like, I might be on the wrong side here.
Yeah, I think, you know, he's got to choose, and he's always going to choose, you know, Homelander in a way. And so, you know, that sycophantic thing sort of comes up. And yeah, no, there's definitely lines that, you know, that they step on and like, do you cross this line? And that's, you know, I'm really interested in where they're going this season with the deep storyline. I'm loving it. So it's always interesting. And yeah, he kind of has to take the plunge because he's still, you know, deeply insecure and doesn't really, you know, he needs that person to tell him what to do. So
the wife has got to go. I mean, I love her, but she's got to go. Claudia, we spoke at the beginning of season 2 about this character. I mean, Victoria was a slow burn. Because honestly, like the way she was introduced, I mean, she is a mass killer.
Spoiler.
But that puts a huge target on her. That, you know, like, yeah. But what we saw her evolving into in season 3 was, how much did you know going in about her connection to Stan and what her ascension would be like?
Oh, I knew we all have a meeting with Eric at the beginning, and he kind of gives you like pillars on which to stand, or like how it will progress, but it's also sort of vague. So I had a basic idea, but I, as always, never know the full gravity of where it's going to lead Newman, which is kind of perfect for my character too, because she is in this state of she's scrambling. Sure, she's trying to plan, she's trying to plot, but like the end goal is always kind of out of reach, and she's thrown into many different situations, as is every character on the show each episode, so it kind of lends itself to the character.
You all got very interesting pairings this season in various sequences, and you and Erin had that amazing scene in episode 6. Episode 6 was like, could have been its own season. Like everything happened in episode 6. But you guys had that great scene where Victoria kind of appeals to her as a mother. And I love the fact that, like, because Annie had a terrible mother. So, like, she is already, like, the frame of reference she had, that was a great secret. How did you guys approach playing that? Because there were so many layers there.
The thing I got to play with Newman originally before all the cards were on the table, was that I like to say she wears a different mask depending on who she's speaking to. And she very much appeals to what their needs are and their wants are, to appear friendly, non-threatening, and kind of giverable things. And that's strategic and manipulative so that she can get what she wants in the end. So I think it was, I remember having a conversation with Kripke, because the dialogue was somewhat different. The approach to Annie came from a different point originally. I think it was somewhat like it was like the let's go girl feminist approach, but it didn't feel like what Newman would appeal to in Annie, especially since they'd become close and they were in each other's circles. So we reworked it a bit, and that was just what felt like Newman would appeal to in Annie, which I think worked. So that's great.
So I think you brought up an interesting point in terms of her mother. I think that one of the benefits, one of my favorite parts about doing television that goes multiple seasons is, instead of doing a film or the first season of a TV show where you yourself are responsible for building the backstory, however that may be, imagination, whatever, there's nothing that compares to living in that character's shoes, right? So I've lived in Annie's shoes extensively for a few seasons at this point. And I think that she's trying to wade through the trauma and her relationship with her mother and so many different things to find clarity and stick to her mission, right? And I think she's trying desperately to decipher, as many of us do, what is a trauma response and an appropriate trauma response versus what is an appropriate response to this person. And I think in that scene, there's an interesting amalgamation, which is her trauma is triggered because she has been so betrayed. She has been so objectified by this corporation. She is so distrustful of Newman and can see right through her. So I do think her trauma brain is triggered. But I think this is the moment where she's able to see that, recognize it, put it to the side, act accordingly, and act in a rational way. So I do think that, funnily enough, if you react from the trauma brain, I think it can be a bad thing. But if you have the ability to decipher between the trauma brain and the rational brain, it can be really powerful. And I think Annie starts to do that in that moment and continues to for the rest of the season.
Well, it sets her up to start really going against the evolution of his toxic masculinity. Yeah. And at the same time, and again, because it's episode 6, Laz, you get to try to beat the crap out of Carl. You get that. How fun was that to basically use Carl Urban as a baseball batting practice?
I think that for the previous 2 seasons, you see how close these guys are and how much of a brotherhood exists between them. It's a very toxic love because they spend most of their time insulting each other. But at the same time, they give their lives for one another. And the only reason why my mother's milk is back in the boys is because Butcher asked him to come back. Let's keep it real. He was fine doing what he was doing. So to finally be back and your best friend and only member of the boys that knows what Soulja Boy did to you what Soulja Boy did to your family, you know, and then he decides to team up with him and not tell him, not tell Mother's Milk, not even console with him, you know, who, let's keep it real. Mother's Milk is the consigliere of the boys, of Butcher. You know, that was something that was so painful and hurtful. And it was just, he broke everything that we had as far as a friendship and a bond. You know, and that's going to be very difficult to repair. And, you know, obviously we're in the middle of season 4 right now, but those things, you know, those questions have to be answered at some point, you know, and those relationships are broken, you know, so those type of things are, I think, what make our show very realistic in the sense that it really explores and goes very deep into mental health as well as relationships between each other.
And there's also, for Chace and Jessie, you know, you guys spent a lot of time in season 2 together because of the organization you joined. Where do these guys stand now?
Now, as in post. Now, as in when?
Going into season 4, where would you put them going into season 4? Because I feel like there's still some unsettled stuff there.
There's definitely some tension still, right?
Yeah, there's just there's just conversations that need to be had. You know, I feel like even before we meet these characters in season 1, A-Train and the Deep have history. You know, they have a certain feeling about each other. You know, we look at each other a certain way when we're in the room. We talk to each other, you know, in the way that people who have had many conversations can only speak to one another. And I feel like at the end of season 3, we had that opportunity at the Church of the Collective to kind of sit down and come together. And we didn't. We just, you know, butted heads and we just pretended and we lied and we manipulated and all these other things. And at the end of it, it's kind of just like, all right, are we going to hash this out or are we not? You know, so it's just a lot of unspoken dialogue there between the two of us.
And the most difficult part about that scene was trying to be serious because we kept cracking up when we were trying to fight. So,
so that is something. It's something I know. It's like you're all professionals and you try not to break and all that stuff. But how difficult is it to do a scene with Colby?
Oh my God.
Extremely difficult. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Watching her on screen, I'm like, I don't know if I would be able to handle it.
She does something different every time.
Every time. So you never know.
It's insane.
But I have the same experience with Chace. I have the same experience with Chace. There was one scene we had. First of all, I break all the time. I'm terrible at it. There was one scene where we had where all he did was walk through doors. And I couldn't keep a straight face. It like, forget about the lines, forget about the line delivery, forget about the moves. All he did was walk through double doors. And I was like, I'm done. I can't. I'm not going to get through the scene. Write me out. And the same goes for Colby. It's the small, it's what I appreciate so much about Chace is like, physically he adopts that character and there's like a physical stature to it, and that in itself, he can walk down a hallway and I can't keep a straight face and I can't not break.
The show this is not an easy show. You guys are not doing like, you know, this is not the glamour part. This is a lot of work. It asks a lot of you. It's got effects. It's got a lot of cleaning up. Laz, how many times did you have to shower during Herogasm?
First of all, great setup. I didn't know where you were with that. And when you said
yeah,
exactly what was coming next. So, Herogasm, Erin and I, well, I don't know how many times you showered, Erin, but
I didn't have to shower at all.
Listen, considering
every day, obviously. I mean, I was around a lot of naked bodies when I got home, but I wasn't the one covered from head to toe in ejaculation. Let me put it that way.
Well, did shoot for at least 6 days. I mean, that was a long
That's true.
to shoot. What you guys see is about 20% of what we actually shot. That's what was able to clear through Amazon Legal. What you didn't see is what Erin and I will never be able to unsee in life. A lot of showers every day after Herogasm. But yeah, I know what you're referring to, that one moment in time. We did that in one take because it was at the
How
end
big was the thing that shot
Yeah,
you?
like, is it a cannon?
It was a
Yeah, what was
cannon.
it?
it was like a 5 very, very thick, gooey liquid. Had no
It was hand sanitizer, wasn't it?
No, that's a different story. That's a different story that involves a mistake I made. There are a few stories.
Those are the bottles. Yeah.
It's a different story.
All right.
a lot of fluids
Yeah.
during that scene.
Was that a shoot where everybody just wanted to be on set just to witness like how weird it was?
No.
Yes.
No.
As someone who wasn't on that set, yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Because it sounded like a secret society. Everyone was like people would talk to you and they'd be like, "You've seen Herogasm? You've been to the Herogasm set?"
Yeah.
It was so intense. You'd hear stories, but like you didn't know what was happening.
I love how Laz and I were in the eye of the storm and we're both like, no.
Nobody wants to be here.
No.
I remember that episode. I taught Erin how to smoke a cigar,
Oh,
just
yeah.
to calm her nerves, because I'd go back to my trailer and light up a cigar like, all right, I need to chill out because this is crazy. This is getting crazier. Erin was like, hand that over, brother. I need to learn how to smoke.
It was just like, it was a lot. And I know I will say that a lot of people have said to me that's their favorite episode of the season. And I'm like, really? That says a lot about you, including one person who also said, yeah, my friend's wife was a background actor in that episode. And I was like, your friend's wife? And he was like, yeah, but I didn't see her. And I was like, there wasn't a single background actor who was not naked. Thank God you didn't see her.
Wow. So obviously the show asks a lot, but also like weird plot, not even subplot, like offshoots. Like Jessie, you did the music video.
Oh yeah.
Which never even showed on the show itself. It was just something like, you were working in a sound state, like the sound studio, and just filming it. And
Yes.
how was that?
A lot larger than I thought it was going to be. The way that it sounded, it was going to be like bonus content. Maybe there would be, a few lines written that I would have to recite, that type of thing. And then they were going to shoot a video. And I was thinking like, we shoot like, bonus content or, just offsite things when we're filming all the time. And I was thinking it was going to be like that. And then, they told me it was going to happen during the hiatus. And then they were bringing this director in from the UK. And it was like this guy who's producing this track and the model who's going to be the co-star in the video. And it just ended up being something way larger than what I anticipated it being. And then it was even more interesting because it has nothing to do with the show.
No. Right.
They don't even reference it in the show. No one even talks about it.
That was the thing. It wasn't even a storyline.
Really good song though.
Oh, we recorded this for like the soundtrack of Dawn of the Seven.
Yeah.
And then Chace, I don't know if you had any part of it, but like they sent out a deep calendar last year.
Oh yeah, I remember the calendar. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We need to do more soy sauce commercials. They let me do this wild soy sauce commercial first season. We need to do more of that stuff.
Was there an actual photo shoot for the calendar for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, no. They use photos that we did from like the very first photo shoot, and no, yeah. When I walked into when we were doing the super suits fitting for the first time, like 8 different sessions, I walked in and there was like a box of Little Deep styrofoam penises, right? So here she and LJ was like, yeah, they want, they think it should be funny if you had, a rocket in your pants for like a few scenes. And it was literally the first scene I shot on stage with Erin, and I walk out, there's a bunch of people and they all like gasp and start laughing. And Amazon's like, Kripke was like, Amazon never gives us notes, but the one note, like we got to remove the fake thing. So, but yeah, some of those photos made it into the calendar.
They did, yes.
Yeah.
For the soups on the panel here, has Eric even toyed with the idea or threatened you with doing an entire episode that would just be footage from the movie? Yeah.
That would actually be brilliant.
That would be amazing.
I would watch the hell out of that because I want to see what the story is.
Charlize Theron, if you're available.
Yeah. Did you guys know about that? Did you know about that cameo?
We did. We were sworn to secrecy, but we did.
What about the Deep's Imagine video? Did you know about all of those people?
No, that it would be a thing, but we didn't know who was going to be.
We didn't know. Yeah, we didn't know exactly who they got.
Patton Oswalt made sense, but then when Elizabeth Banks and Rose Byrne showed up, I'm like, where are they getting these people?
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah.
As you move into like the fourth season, obviously you can't spoil anything, but I need to wrap you guys. But I figure at this point, since this will get some pickup, can you tease anything about what you've started working on for season 4?
I'll take this.
Really?
Let me see. You know what I'll say? And I think this is totally fair. I think Kripke has made it a priority to go every year, like deeper, no pun intended, with the characters. And I think one of the most interesting things about our show that is, there's a parallel in society is we're finding out more and more about the backgrounds of characters that have made them who they are. And I think that kind of expands your perception of what's good and bad. And it expands your sympathy a little bit if you find out where someone has come from, what they've been through. If they're being an asshole, there's trauma behind it. And I think that's a really great way to approach each character, to go into detail about their backstory, to explain why they are the way they are.
I think we're going to leave it at that.
I think that's the perfect
good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you guys. The show is, you very rarely see a show, I don't at least, that gets to its 3rd season and like continues to top itself. And what you guys delivered, as far as covering the trauma and the recovery, even like the Huey heading into like a drug addiction,
Right.
it was a great season. And for a show, like I said at the beginning, for a show that opens in an opening, you guys delivered. You should be so proud of this, because it is an extraordinary show, and you guys are doing some great work. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you all for sharing your experiences, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
So much.
And both of you actually somehow managed to not have to be inside the Herogasm mansion during the actual event.
I was. I was in there.
Yeah, you were.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Oh yeah, I was naked. I was having
delicious
chats. I was in there, man.
And now it's my pleasure. I'm so excited again, because I love the boys so much. So to get to talk to these two guys about what we've seen, what may be coming up, is a thrill to me. So first we have Antony Starr, and then we have Jack Quaid. Hey guys.
Hello.
I'm so grateful that you guys could do this, because it's like we have the good and the bad here. But the great thing is like, and the show is so crafty and nefarious in the way of like, even the worst have a good part to them, and even the best have a bad part. And Jack, I think season 3 really let us know that Huey is not 100% noble.
Yes. And I gotta admit, I really loved showing that side of him, because I think what makes all these characters so compelling is that they're multifaceted. And yeah, exactly. With Antony, quote unquote, he is the bad guy, but he has parts of him that make you sympathize with him. And that's what makes him such a great character. And what I loved about Huey this season was, he's a human being, and human beings are not all good. You have sides of yourself that you don't like, or, whether you're aware of it or not. Like, you have certain thoughts of like, oh, why did I react that way in that situation? And I really loved playing on Huey's, kind of budding toxic masculinity. And I love how it's all wrapped up in the story of him choosing to take temporary V. I just thought it was such a cool superhero-y way in to show that, not everyone is only their best traits. And I think that just makes the character more human and therefore more relatable. And I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Yeah. I mean, nobody is, we had a saying, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but when I was coming up in acting classes and that, I am multitudes, right? There's no such thing as a good person or a bad person. There is good people do bad things all the time, and as soon as you think that you're impenetrably good, you got problems.
That might be the most evil thought possible. I'm impenetrably good.
Impenetrably good.
A lot of people do. A lot of people sit on the high
Yeah.
horse, morally judging without full context. And whenever I found myself in that situation, which is not too often, but something has helped me realize that we are all capable of messing up. And by the same token, the people that you think sometimes, that we think are dastardly and evil for whatever reason. There's a few people around at the moment that everyone thinks are just outright evil, and some of them you might argue they are. But for the most part, nobody is one. Right. Nobody is that two-dimensional.
Yeah. And I feel like both of these characters, maybe not the root of their worst aspects, but definitely a fuel to it, is they're both very desperate in need of love or want of love. Whereas Huey is looking for, Annie's love. And Homelander is looking for global love. Like, this is like his aphrodisiac seems to be adoration.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, his pathology is plentiful.
I think the funny thing, as you just said, I think Huey and Homelander both have like mummy issues, right?
Yeah, big time.
We have big time mummy issues. I do have the adoration thing. Your ego seems to be coming through in it's quite a robust way in season 3. Mine is fully fledged, so I'm the Robbie Williams of the ego has landed.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes, thank you for invoking Robbie Williams.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. But no, that's one of the great things about these characters, and it's almost what we were saying before, is that they are multifaceted. Eric has never been interested in creating characters that are based on being good or evil, because then we just don't have a show. We don't have our show. We don't have the same intricacies and levels, and we couldn't, to be honest, we couldn't deal with we couldn't satirize modern day social events and politics, because you're bound to true moral north or south, and you have to exist in the gray area to be able to mix it up with real events in the world.
It's almost as if we're saying, like, there are bad people on both sides.
There's always bad people on both sides, and by the same token, there's good people on both sides.
Yes.
Oh,
so
God.
So you mentioned Eric Kripke, and before the season dropped, a lot of you guys on social media almost put out, like, it was like a flex and also a warning that this season was completely beyond anything you'd ever expected. Like, that it was just more. And you delivered, clearly. But what kind of conversations do you guys have with Eric and the writers before production starts?
Well, the great thing about Eric is that he's so collaborative. I mean, I know Antony and I both, the whole cast really feels welcome to email him with any thoughts. So we get those scripts, and that's the time where we get to be fans and just kind of watch the show in our heads, essentially, and read that horrible moment in the first episode where someone's crawling into somebody's urethra and they explode. I don't even know how much synopsis of our own show I can say in this format. You tell me. But, obviously we all have our reactions, and it's very shocking and it's very cool. And you have moments where you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But then what's so cool is you're able to, if you have thoughts on anything, you're able to come to Eric. He will change things for you. He fights back on some stuff, but he lets you come in. It's a collaboration, and it's a true collaboration. And I feel like I've worked with people in the past who say it's a collaboration, but it isn't. And this feels it feels like we all own a small little piece of it. It's a timeshare, basically. But it's not a scam, and it feels really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Timeshare. That's funny. I looked at it like, Eric, it's a smart move for any boss to actually be open to collaboration. He said right off the bat, like, I said, okay, so I like coming in and pitching ideas, and like, is that okay with you? And he said, I am more than happy to take credit for any good ideas you come up with. I said, good, and he's been true to his word.
Yeah.
Not that I come up with good ideas, but so the funny thing is before the show comes out, you said it's like a flex, and I'm like, oh, it's not a flex for me. It's like a warning and a confession. Like I'm just like, oh, please, just bear with us, okay? If you don't like it, just fast forward, take a pillow over your. My mom watches the whole thing through a pillow, or doesn't watch the whole thing through a pillow, but no, I'm always very curious to see what the fan response and also to a certain extent, lesser, but to a certain extent, what the critical response will be, whether people sort of get it or don't, because that one of the things that I've always loved about the show, and it's not all the time. Sometimes there's just fun things like little men jumping in genitals that are just outright funny. But then there's other things that happen that are just so outlandish. But in the bizarre universe that we're in, you can have the deep riding a whale,
right,
in the efforts to get back in the seven. The needs of the character are driving the narrative. So it's really it's just that the narrative is batshit. Yeah. So it's something that I've always loved about the show, and that it's always exciting for us, or at least for me, when we're releasing this, as we've said multiple times, releasing a new season of The Virus on the world.
Yeah.
No, it's a fun show.
Can I just add to that really quick? What I like about the narrative being so batshit is that it's also so topical and also so relevant to our real world. And what I love is like, there are certain moments that are just like batshit, and you can tell we're just like, kids making a movie who, like basically where we get to just like have fun with the grossness of it. But then there are some moments that are, insane, but very topical and relevant to the real world. And it makes you kind of question, at least it does for me, like our real world is so insane. Like what's more insane really at the end of the day, like our show or what's actually happening, which I love. I love the boring of that line.
It's an interesting point, but I can't think of any show that's quite doing what I think the show.
I know. Granted, we go very far, but yes.
No, but we go very far in every direction. We go very far thematically. We don't hold back. We don't pull any punches. I can't think of any shows that really launch into social and political issues, particularly in America, obviously, in the same way that ours, that also have that batshit crazy side going on as well, which arguably, I'm a big fan of Taika Waititi. You may have heard of him. He's a little known director from New Zealand.
Indie film guy.
Yeah, that guy. Well, actually, funny enough, in his indie films, he does this beautifully. He takes very dark, heavy historic issues and or societal issues, and very delicately and in a very nuanced and subtle and comedic way, sort of allows the audience in. And I think our show does that.
Right.
Maybe not with as much subtlety. We're a little bit more raw and gutsy, but it's the same sort of thing. The humor and the interesting characters and the crazy story actually makes it so accessible in that it's just fun.
Right.
Yeah.
It laced through it thematically,
and it never preaches.
Yeah.
It's not
just messaging.
And it's interesting you say that, because I still remember, like, Stormfront was clearly, she was a bad person, a bad character, like she was a villain, but then when they added the reveal of her Nazi connections and it made that character and what she did so much darker.
Oh yeah.
Suddenly it was like went from villain to like true supervillain by just adding a reference. Mm-hmm. And that's what the show does really well. And you guys, like Huey, like the whole toxic masculinity thing this season, it was very interesting because you were also, did you find yourself falling into any of that mindset? Because you were the only character who had to really worry about like nude scenes.
Oh,
You know,
I kind of just.
Which I was happy to be around and part of.
So I'm breaking down the question. So was I a toxic male while nude? I hope.
well, did you find yourself being like, oh, I got to pump up, I got to make sure I look good, like, all that?
I mean, look, my goal was to just not look terrible. That was kind of my goal. But what I like about the fact that like Huey isn't necessarily like ripped to shreds is the fact that like he's human. Like he has these powers and they make you super powerful, but they're not putting that excess sheen on you necessarily. But yeah, that was a very interesting time in my life where I had to be naked a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's this thing of like the first day is so terrifying. It's like most people's nightmares is to be just naked in front of a crowd, which is essentially what it is. Like it's a closed set, but there's still like, there has to be cameramen and sound guys and people and other actors. And that's just a really scary thing. And then once you do it, you kind of get used to it. So by the time we did that big fight scene, in the Herogasm mansion where I like shoved Tony and come in at the last second, it was kind of old hat by then. I got pretty comfortable in it, and I never thought I would ever really get there. But leave it to Eric Kripke to show you where your boundaries are and see if you can cross them or not. But it was it was a very interesting experiment with my brain.
And both of you actually somehow managed to not have to be inside the Herogasm mansion during the actual event.
I was in there.
Yeah, you were.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Oh yeah. I was naked. I was having chats. I was in there, man.
Yeah.
And, what was it on set like during that production? Like, it's got to be weird, right? Like, what's Crafty look like?
Crafty's weird. I mean, my favorite story from that season is I overheard a PA going like, oh man, I got the hand sanitizer station confused with the lube station. Like that's my quote of the year. Yeah. But I will say I have to give our show credit where credit's due. Like there were like intimacy coordinators, all the people we got to be actually performing those acts were some of the most professional people I've ever worked with. Like, again, kind of like being nude every day, you get more and more comfortable as it goes on. And as you're in that set, of course, it's shocking at first, but then as you go on hour by hour by hour, it all just becomes so normalized. So I got to say, like, I'm proud of our show for handling that behind the scenes in a very delicate and considerate way for everyone involved.
That said, I
know it's insane. I get it.
Yeah, good.
I also was there. I know what happened.
You, bro. You walked the line well, pal.
Because there were things where I was like, well, first of all, the season that opens inside a penis, you're like, well, how does this go beyond this? And you did.
Oh yeah.
I was just happy. I got to be honest. I was glad to come in at the end of it and not really have anything to do with it, other than step over a bunch of mutilated bodies outside and various degrees of undress. And
my favorite thing was seeing Jensen just look at the ceiling the whole time he was there.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off, Antony. Go ahead.
No, he's so sweet. He's such a nice guy. You're right.
I know. I didn't want to be disrespectful.
Wow.
The crew members, when I came in, were just shaking their heads going,
yeah,
I have seen things I never thought I would see on a film set. So, but again, it's all handled very well, but I think it was a bit eye-opening as well for people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Antony, this season, it's always been an incredible performance, but this season it feels like you went next level with this. You found that sweet spot between like broken psyche, vanity, villainy, and heroism. Whereas we were watching you on screen and it was like, God, this guy, Homelander, is so deeply, deeply conflicted and complex. It was so, and the amount of text and tweets that I saw and got were like, like, this is insane. Like, what is he doing on screen? This is so, like, it was great. It was so great to see. In fact, like, people went as you as, friends of mine dressed as you for Halloween. Which was amazing. Like, this guy built the Homelander costume.
Kind of lends itself to that, right?
But I was like, you understand, like, this is a Nazi sympathizing bigot mass killer.
Yeah.
What does it take to get into his headspace?
Well, I think you got to approach, for me at least, I don't know how, I can only speak for myself, but with any character like that, any bad character, I mean, first of all, you take away the word bad, take away the word psycho, take away all the labels and the easy, it's very easy to pull those label words out, those, just boxing words. So I take them all away. And then honestly, one of the great things about this job is you get to do things on camera, on stage, on film, whatever, that you would never be able to do in real life. And so as far as I'm concerned, you just embrace it. And I mean, something happened on set that we were just shooting the other day. And my note to Eric was there was a joke in there that was like, it's not a joke. It's just something Homelander related to something else. And it's just so wrong. And I said to Eric, hey, I really love that joke. Can we go further? And he was like, yeah, we can. So that's going to come out last. I mean, that's a constant sort of, these are the work conversations that we have. And it's so freeing and it's so enjoyable because it really is. First of all, you got to take it with a pinch of salt, right? Nobody is actually a psycho. But that makes it very doable. And it's fun to dip into really dark. It's fun to dip into really like the extremes of the human experience, right? At least I find it fascinating. Human beings are endlessly disturbing and fascinating in the real world, and so really, it's about emulating that. But there's no one person. There is obviously one person that Eric loves comparing it to Trump, right? Which is no secret that's out there. Right. But I've always sort of taken that to a certain extent, but then at a certain point, you run out of places to go because bizarrely the real life human is actually a cardboard cutout, and that's not really good enough for what we try to do with the character. Right. So you're dipping in and out of all these, like,
you actually have to create a character who's deeper than a human.
Isn't that bizarre? But it's actually, I swear to God, that's the truth. But if we just do that, it's just gonna be this one. No, it's not going to be interesting. But I just think it's fun. And I think with anything like this, I mean, we know the world, we know the universe. Like I said, the show is not subtle. It doesn't pull punches. It's not going to stay away from. Nowhere is beyond limits. Everything is on the table. And I think if you sign on to do that job, then you've got to be prepared to jump in both feet. So. And I think everyone does on the show. So, my part is to, like Jack said, it's a timeshare. My little, I take care of that character and make sure that I'm doing whatever I can with it, and then watch all these great guys do all their thing, and they throw it all together.
Really there's such an incredible balance of performances. Like everyone, like you said, like it's the timeshare, and everyone brings something. And Jack Huey, even at his worst, was so sympathetic. We want him to be better because we know he is better. But did you find in playing a killer in Scream that being like a villain is super fun as well?
It's so fucking fun. It's so goddamn fun. Particularly in a movie like Scream, where you can be a little, slightly on the campier side. But I think, like, to Antony's point, like, every character is the hero of their own story. So, and it was kind of an interesting thing for me to play around with, was that, this idea of ego. I mean, Huey's ego was bruised in season 3. And, Richie is a guy that just kind of really wants to be a certain version of himself. He basically wants to be like the killer in a Scream movie. And it's like two people who there's a little part of them that's broken and they're trying to fix it, albeit in very, very different ways. But no, like when you get to inhabit like an antagonist figure, it's so much fucking fun. And I did actually have the thought a few times where I was like, oh, this must be how Antony feels every single day. And it's like, that's just kind of wonderful. Like, good for you.
Right, because you get to say the lines that the good guys don't get to say.
I know, it's very fun.
I mean, it is very free. It's very fun. I think when you talk about Scream, I think you had an interesting line to walk there, because it's a clear who's the bad guy until the last act, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting watching you navigate that. And if you go back, I think there's little Easter egg clues through there. But You can tell me if I'm wrong, Jack, but I'm pretty sure.
No, you're absolutely right. Also, thank you, because I took him and most of the cast of The Boys who were in town to go see it when it came out. So thanks for coming, buddy.
Okay, and that's the other thing. So we've all worked in this industry for a while. I've covered it. You guys have been in it. You know how rare it is to be 3 seasons deep and still hanging with the cast and golfing and barbecuing and all that stuff. Like, and then getting to have those relationships kind of turned upside down on set when you guys get to come in and play those games with each other. How is it when you're doing something like the finale's fight sequence where everybody is at each other's throats?
Well, I have to say, like, for the purposes of this question, the two of us in this Zoom are kind of the perfect people because we never really work together unless it's a scene where, like, Antony is literally about to kill me. But the two of us have this really good relationship offset where we're just like getting a casual dinner or like having a drink at a bar that we both love. And, you know, we hang out, even like I just said, even when we're in LA. And then for the only time that we work together to be you staring daggers into my eyes, about to laser my fucking head off. It's such a surreal thing every single time to me.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And it's such a strange thing. You know, you sign on to these jobs in America, at least. We don't back home. We don't have the same spicy contracts that they have over here. But so we sign on for 6 years or 5, 6 seasons, whatever. And it's a lottery, man. You could be signing. Who knows if Jack Quaid's going to be a good guy or if, you know, he's going to be a jerk. Yeah. Luckily, he's a good guy. But this is I think, and especially with a cast this big, we've got a central cast that is really like 13 people or something, and it's very rare that you get so many people within a cast that even the people that I don't do scenes with, that I barely see, like Tamir. I've never done a scene with Tamir.
I've never done a scene with Chace. Ever.
Yeah, but
really
very tight. And there's a really solid bond there. When we see each other, you know, at events, at when we're doing press, when offset, and that is very rare. And I know it's a bit of a cliche. Actors always say that, you know, oh, this is the best cast, and you know, but.
No, it's true. Like, this is the best cast.
I think it's really important to realize that, though, when you're going through it, because I've been on other shows where I've had also one in particular.
Great cast, right?
They had a great cast, and I didn't appreciate it. I didn't really appreciate it for what it was. Yeah. And then when it was gone, I was fucking kicking myself going, oh, that was a great job with a great bunch of people. And then too little too late, I realized. And I've got that with this. Like, I really appreciate it, the job, the people. So we got a good
really cool thing. It's sorry, really quickly, like, because we're shooting season 4 now, and you know, what's been really nice about this season, I'm not going to say anything, you know, spoiler wise, but basically, it's been cool I've really made an effort this season to take a look around me and appreciate everyone, and I think everyone is similarly making that effort, and it's just great. I don't know. I truly do feel thankful every day. I know that sounds like a cliche thing, but there's no one I'd rather be doing this with than the people on the show.
And you guys mentioned, you know, people that you've worked with or not worked with, and they're so like, and I feel like she does not get enough attention, but Dominique, who you both have these incredible exchanges with. The scenes that you guys get with Dominique are so great. And the give and take, like the fact that she's just so mean to you.
Yeah.
You know what I always thought, and this is like a thing that I'm sure will never make it into the show. So in my backstory for Huey, I always had it that Queen Maeve was his favorite growing up.
Right. That's exactly what I felt.
And that's what I'm thinking in all those fucking scenes. And that's what I love, is that every time she sees me, I don't even get a word out, and she just calls me a twink or a bottom. And like, that's her fucking, and Huey has to just be like, all right.
Yeah, like, because she could kill you.
That's her truth, man.
And the stuff that you had with her in the chamber this year, Antony, was like, God, those scenes were so great because you feel the history of these two characters who came up together.
Yeah, it's a pretty messed up relationship. There's a lot. Yeah. It's like I look at it like Homelander would be the worst ex ever that you can't get away from. You know, you're stuck in this place, and poor old Maeve. She's a miserable character who's just, you know, stuck in this limelight position that she detests, just wants to be normal. And it's a tough it's a tough character to play. And I think Dom has always done such a fantastic job of handling it. And, you know, she's a delicate soul. And so that comes through in the character a lot. I think you can see that in her eyes when she's not saying anything. And then, you know, the character, a lot of the things with this show is like, you know, I'm in a big outfit, so you don't need to do a lot. And it's the same with hers. It's like a pretty, you know, we don't want for cool costumes. You know, even Butcher as well. Butcher's got that cool jacket. I'm like, pretty cool. Shit, Trey Chic, my man. But so much is done for us, especially on the suit side of things. And it's really, I think that's why with a lot of the castings, like you mentioned, Aya Cash before, who I think is you know, brilliant, did an extraordinary job coming on, and she's just one of the nicest people. Mm-hmm. She's the nicest little New York lady you'll ever meet, and I think that's why when you get nice people doing horrible things, it gives a lot of depth to it. And I think that's one of the things about the show is like we have a bunch of nice people doing some pretty off stuff across the board.
Right. I love it.
Nice little balance.
And Jack, are you curating Huey's t-shirts now? Or are these like fan gifts?
No, I have started dressing a lot more like Huey. After the first season, I bought a lot of graphic tees. I was already pretty bad in terms of like my addiction to graphic t-shirts, but after I started playing him, I was a lot more bands, a lot more movies. I do have a say in like what shirts Huey wears. Like it's obviously a conversation between Eric, myself, and our amazing costume department. You know, there's certain groups who I won't mention, but like who I think would be perfect for Huey, but for some reason or other don't want to give their, you know, the license. I kind of get why. I mean, typically I'm like in the belly of a whale, literally covered in blood. You know, there's a certain thing with that, but I love Huey's t-shirt collection. And I think that was so important to me starting was Huey's love for Billy Joel. Cause that was, you know, like I said, with Eric and collaborating, there was a line that I said on my very first day of work. It was a scene in the pilot with Butcher and Huey, and Butcher's trying to convince Huey to go put a bug in the 7 Tower. And I said something like, you know who my favorite musician is? James Taylor. Like, I don't infiltrate. I said something like that. And then Eric came up to me. He's like, all right, make that a list. James Taylor, Simon and Garfunkel, Billy Joel. And then something about Billy Joel just stuck. And therefore that became, do you know what a gift that is to know your character's favorite musician? Right. That's huge. So that was wonderful. My Spotify Wrapped is fucked. It's just all Billy Joel because I'm just listening to it for the character, but I'm a huge fan as well. So it's, that's such a cool thing to like wear your character's musical taste literally on your body. That just provides so much cool information. And I give Eric so much credit for that. That was awesome.
That is hilarious. Well, listen, I got to wrap you guys, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that because Annie joined the boys, she's kind of the connective tissue between you two.
Correct.
So I'm hoping that means a lot more interactions in season 4 for the two of you.
We'll see. We will see.
Hope to make you happy.
All right. That's a good way of avoiding spoilers, Antony.
I'm not sure. I don't know if you will be happy, but I hope you will be.
All right. Well, listen, thank you guys both. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, process, and craft with your fellow performers. And congratulations. The show is so good. You guys are so great. And I love that you guys mentioned also, I'm impressed that people got it. That fans understood and they got it, and that the critics got it, because genre shows are usually dismissed, and it's what you guys are bringing to the screen that is making them stay and pay attention. So good job.
Oh, well, thanks very much. And thanks for having us, man. This has been a blast.